بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين صلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآل الطيبين الطاهرين Trusting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we continue our discussion. We are discussing the explanation of what Allama Hilli said at the beginning of first chapter about considering the relation between every concept and existence. So page 18, وَتَقْرِيرُهَا, Fadil Miqdad is explaining that. أَنَّ كُلَّ مَعْقُولٍ, truly, every ma'qul, we said, means something that you understand, means concept. Ma'qul here means concept, intelligible. But concept is easier for you. So every intelligible or every concept, and we mean by that, وَهُوَ is the definition of ma'qul. What do we mean by ma'qul? الصورة الحاصلة في العقل is the image that you have in your mind about something. This is concept. It's easy. So every concept, إذا نسبنا إليه الوجود الخارجي, when we consider its relation with external existence. So we want to know any mafhum, what relation it has with external existence. فَإِمَّا أَنْ يَصِحَّ اتصافه به أو لا. Either, imma is different from amma. Yeah? Imma means either, and it has or, means or. Either it is possible to be predicated of existence. It means that existence can be its predicate, existence can be its quality, it can be described by existence, it can be characterized by existence. I give you different words so that you shall understand better. Or not. So either existence is possible for it or not. Is it clear?
But what do you mean by predicated?
You know, you can say A mawjudun. Mawjud is mahmud. You can say description, you can say predicate. Means you can use it in a statement and say this mafhum is mawjud. This is called mawzu and mahmud, yeah?
Thank you.
You are right. فَإِنْ لَمْ يَصِفْ اتصافه به, if it is not possible to be predicated of existence, if it is not possible to describe it with existence, if it is not possible to say it is mawjud لذاته, because of itself, فهو ممتنع الوجود لذاته, it is called ممتنع الوجود لذاته, something which is impossible to be existent because of itself. So maybe you can say like this: impossibly existence by itself. Impossibly existent by itself. Okay? Impossibly existent by itself is accurate, but maybe a little bit difficult. But impossibly existent means it cannot exist by itself. كَشَرِيكِ الْبَارِ, partner for God. Bari means Bari, Khaliq. Sharikul Bari. Ka means like. Sharik, partner. Bari means creator. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cannot have partner. It's impossible. The very concept has problem. It's not that it is contingent, but there was no cause for its existence. Okay? We don't have sharikul bari, we don't have also watermelon. But we don't have watermelon because we don't have the cause. But we don't have sharikul bari not because we don't have the cause, because the concept of sharikul bari has problem. It's impossible by itself. Okay? So, if it is not possible to be described by existence, it is mumtana or wujud. If it is possible, then there are two options. Okay? So, if it is not mumtana, there are two options. Either it is necessary to be predicated of existence or described by existence, or it's not necessary. It means that it is neutral, it's equal. The relation between existence and non-existence, for it is equal. Okay? So you have two options. وَإِن صَحَّ اتصافه بِهِ. If it is sahih, if it is valid, if it is possible, if it is allowed to be described by existence, فَإِمَّا أَنْ يَجِبَ اتصافه بِهِ لَذَاتِهِ أَوْ لَا. Either it is necessary to be described by existence or not. If it is necessary by itself to be existent, we call it wajibul wujud لذاته. Necessary being by itself. And this has only one example. وَهُوَ اللَّهُ تَعَالَى لَا غَيْرُ. We have only one wajibul wujud لذاته. وَالثَّانِ, the one which is possible to be described by wujud, and it is not necessary to be described by wujud. Okay? Possible but not necessary. So it is mumkin. وَالثَّانِ هُوَ مُمْكِنُ الْوُجُودِ لِذَاتِهِ. Something which is contingent. It's possible to exist by itself. وَهُوَ. We have many examples for this. مَا عَدَى الْوَاجِبِ مِنَ الْمَوْجُودَاتِ. Any mawjood, any being other than Allah is mumkin al-wujud لذاته. We are all mumkin al-wujud لذاته. Okay?
Sorry, sir.
Yes.
What do you mean when you say mumkin wujud lidhati? I mean when you say that it does exist of itself.
Yes.
What do you mean exactly by that?
No. لذاته means imkan is its own quality. Because actually we said mumkin al-wujud is always لذاته. It means that the essence of this being has equal relation with existence and non-existence.
So lidhati means
Essentially, by itself.
You mark that.
Yeah. Okay. We go to the second paragraph. Okay? We move on to the second paragraph. وَإِنَّمَا قَيَّدْنَا الْوَاجِبِ. Okay?
What does it mean?
You know, we are in a garden, not in a minefield. Some of you look as if it is a minefield. It's not minefield, it's a garden. Look at it as a minefield, no. It's a garden and we are picking up flowers. وَإِنَّمَا قَيَّدْنَا الْوَاجِبِ بِكَوْنِهِ لِذَاتِهِ. We put this modifier, this condition. We said wajibul wujud lidhati. Why we put this qaid? This qaid means modifier. Yes? Why we limited it to lidhati? Ihtirazan. Ihtirazan min al-wajib li-ghayri. Ihtiraz means to avoid. In order to differentiate, to distinguish between this and the one which is wajib by ghair, by other things, we added this modifier. We said wajibul wujud li dhati, to avoid those things which are wajibul wujud li ghayrih. Ihtiraz means we want to avoid, not to get mixed up. Ihtiraz, ijtinab mean the same, means to avoid. Okay? Ihtirazan, in order to distinguish this from wajib li ghayrih, something which is necessary by the other. For example, وجوب وجود المعلول, necessity of existence of the effect عند, when حصول علته التامة, when its complete cause is there. When the complete cause is there, ma'lul must come. Because what is illat tamma? Means whatever you need for its existence is there. Originating cause is there, conditions are there, and obstacles are not there. Okay? So when all these are there, so ma'lul is there.
What do you mean?
لا يمكن تخلف المعلول عن علته التامة. It's impossible to have علة تامة and not معلول. So معلول is wajib, but wajib الوجود لغيره, because of its illah has become wajib. Yes.
What is ma'lul? What do you mean by
Effect.
Effect.
Something which is brought into existence. Okay. كوجوب وجود المعلول عند حصول علته التامة. The existence of effect is necessary when the complete cause is there. فإنه يجب وجوده. In such case, existence of معلول is wajib, but لكن لا لذاته, but not because of itself. It's not by itself. بل لوجود علته التامة. It's because of the existence of its complete cause. So, we say Allah is wajibul wujud li in order to differentiate between Allah and all of us, which are necessary, but we are necessary because of ghayr, because of our illat tammah, our complete cause. وَقَيَّدْنَا الْمُمْتَنِعَ أَيْضًا. For mumtani also we said mumtani' li-zati. We said sharikul bari is mumtani' li-zati. Why we mentioned li-zati? Because we can also have mumtani' li-ghayrih. Yes? What is mumtani' li-ghayrih?
If Allah can make another one who is like him.
Something which is by itself mumkin, but because the cause was not there, now it cannot exist. Pardon?
He said like
Yes. Which is mumtani' li ghayri. Okay? Yes. وَقَيَّدْنَا الْمُمْتَنِعِ أَيْضًا بِكَوْنِهِ لِذَاتِهِ. We also brought this modification or modifier for mumtani' to be لِذَاتِهِ احترازا, in order to avoid understanding, confusion, mixing up with mumtani' li-ghayrih. We wanted to exclude, to avoid mumtani' li-ghayrih, something which is impossible by the other. Like what? كَامْتِنَاعِ وُجُودِ الْمَعْلُولِ عِنْدَ عَدَمِ إِلَّتِهِ. When the effect, okay? When the effect's cause is not there, so it cannot be there. Impossibility of existence of the effect when the cause is not there. هذان القسمان, and these two types, الواجب لغيره, الممتنع لغيره. In reality, these two fall under what category, wajib لغيره, mumtan لغيره, they fall under mumkin لذاته. Yes, because mumkin is either wajib لذاته or wajib لغيره. Yes, we cannot have mumkin لغيره. Is it clear? Mumkin only لذاته. But then mumkin لذاته in reality either becomes wajib لغيره or mumtan لغيره. Because mumkin either exists or doesn't exist. If it exists, it's wajib لغيره. If it doesn't exist, it's mumtan لغيره. Okay? So in this world there is no chance. Philosophers say there is no chance. Because everything is either necessary to be there or necessary not to be there. So there is no chance. What we call chance is because of our lack of knowledge. For example, I say, no, I went there and by chance I met so and so. This is chance for you, but if you knew the chains of the causality, you would not say this is a chance. Okay? Anyway, we will discuss this in philosophy. هذان القسمان داخلان في قسم الممكن واجب الوجود لغيره ممتنع الوجود لغيره. They both are under which قسم؟ ممكن. Okay. Paragraph 3. وأما الممكن فلا يكون وجوده لغيره. Mumkin cannot be for the other or by the other. فلا فائدة في غيره لذاته. So there is no benefit in bringing the modifier of لذاته. Because obvious, there is no other option. It has to be لذاته. Mumkin is always لذاته. You don't need to say لذاته because it's always لذاته. إلا لبيان أنه لا يكون إلا كذلك. And if you mention لذاته, it's just to explain and emphasize on the fact that it has always to be لذاته. So this قيد is for توزيع, not for احتراز. One of the things you see a lot in our scholarly Arabic texts, they say this قيد is احترازي or this قيد is not احترازي. Sometimes قيد is توزيعي. For example, if I say that ممكن الوجود لذاته, this لذاته is for توزيع, is for explanation and maximum clarity. It's not احترازي because we don't have two types. Okay? We don't have two types. We have only one type. So, now, if I say a talaba who studies, is this احترازي or توزيعي? Is it توزيعي or احترازي? Why it is توزيعي? Why it is?
Because
Those who say احترازي. Pardon?
All talaba already studied. And
Yes.
Talaba who doesn't study is not really a talaba.
So, if we say the talaba who doesn't study is not talaba, then it becomes توزيعي. If we say we have two types of talaba, those who study and those who don't study, then it becomes احترازي. Okay, so now those talaba who don't do a study, and if we say talaba is the one who does a study, what should we call them? And maybe we can say in Akhir al-Zaman this becomes احترازي because then we have in Akhir al-Zaman talaba who don't study. But there was a time that talaba by definition was a study. Inshallah again becomes like that. Anyway, we have احترازي and we have توزيعي. Sometimes غير is احترازي, sometimes it's توزيعي. لذاته for ممكن is not احترازي. It's توزيعي. It's just for further emphasis. Means explanatory. So it's not to divide into two groups and differentiate between this one and that one. Yes? إلا لبيان أنه لا يكون إلا كذلك. It is just for explaining that it cannot be other than that. لا للاحتراز عن غيره. It's not to avoid another thing. Okay. Then Fazil al-Miqdad says ولنتم هذا البحث بذكر فائدتين يتوقف عليهما المباحث الآتية. He says now we should complete this discussion by mentioning two fa'idah. Fa'idah means benefit. Ulama sometimes, when they want to make points, they use different terms. Sometimes, for example, for point, they say fa'idah. Means something that you benefit from. Instead of just saying point 1, point 2, they say fa'idah 1, fa'idah 2. Means something that you can benefit from. Okay? Fa'idah. So, بذكر فائدتين, we mentioned 2 points. Basically means 2 points. Two beneficial points. On which the following discussions depend. يتوقف عليهما المباحث الآتية. Following discussions, future discussions, depend on these 2 points. الفائدة الأولى, the first point. في خواص الواجب لذاته. Khawas means what? Properties, qualities, or characteristics. Maybe characteristics is better. Wajib al-dhate, necessary by itself, has 5 characteristics. Of course, it has more, but here we mention 5. Khamsa. Al-ula. The first one is this. أنه لا يكون وجوده واجبا لذاته ولغيره معا. واجب الوجود لذاته is not possible to be لذاته ولغيره together. To be necessary by itself and necessary by the other. Because when it is necessary by itself, what is the role of the other? It's by itself there. وَإِلَّا, if it was really possible that it is by the other as well, it means that without that other, it could not have existed. And this contradicts that you said it in wajib al-wujud lezat. Yes? If it was leghayre, it means that other is bringing this to existence. So this contradicts saying that it is by itself. Wa'illa. Wa'illa means if it was not impossible to be lezat and leghayre together, if it was not, wrong, لَكَانَ وُجُودُهُ مُرْتَفِعًا عند ارتفاع وجود ذلك الغير. The existence of wajib al-wujud, when that ghair, that other was not existing, was stopping, was not possible. So it means that it becomes needy, it becomes dependent on ghair. فَلَا يَكُونُ وَاجِبًا لِذَاتِهِ. So it's not wajib by itself. هذا خلف. This is خلف. You know خلف in mantiq? خلف, you must have heard خلف a lot. خلف means خلاف الفرض. Means this is opposite to what is our assumption. Our assumption was that it is wajib by itself. They call this khulf. Means you go from the other side, the opposite, and then prove. For example, someone says God, for example, doesn't need to be one. I say, okay, suppose God is two. Then I start with supposing God is two and then lead him to contradiction. Then we realize that the assumption was wrong and we have to go to the opposite. Okay? Khulf. Khulf means khilaf means it's wrong, so the opposite must be correct. This is wrong, this assumption is wrong, so the opposite is true.
Rationally, it's another methodology.
It's a way of arguing, yeah? It's a way of... Yes. So, for example, here, I repeat again. We said wajibul wujud lezate and leghayre together is not possible. You say it's possible, okay. Suppose it's possible. So, wajibul wujud lezate is also leghayre. It means that ghayr is giving necessity to it. So if that ghayr doesn't exist, it cannot exist. So this means that it is not lezate. Two, the second characteristic of wajibul wujud lezate. Annahu. These are, of course, maybe a little bit difficult, but for you, I think it's possible. Inshallah, you understand, and more understanding comes, inshallah, in philosophy. لا يكون وجوده ووجوبه زائدين عليه. The existence of God and the necessity of the existence of God, these two are not additional to God. Za'idain means additional. Because you know, wajibul wujud is basit. Min jami' al-jihad is simple. Basit, you know, basit means simple, has no parts, no combination. You shouldn't think that wujud is additional to God's essence. Wujub is additional. No. None of God's qualities, His knowledge, His power, His hayat, none of them is additional to God. And this is why Amirul Mu'minin said, Kamalul ikhlas lah nafyus sifat an. Because there were some people who had this idea that sifat of God, qualities of God, are additional to God. So it means that God in His essence doesn't have knowledge. God in His essence doesn't have power. These are additional, accidental. We say no. We had this in Aqaid, that from the very same essence, we abstract different concepts. Ibaratuna shatta wa husnuka wahidu kullun ila dhaka al-jamali yushiru. We had this before, yeah? So, from the same reality, we take out different concepts. Yes.
Even though it's impossible to give any example for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because He says, Laisa kamithlihi shay. But just for understanding, can we give the example of fire? When fire has heat, smoke and light, but again it's one thing. Can we place this example?
Sometimes yes. Like for example, even for us, imkan for us, it is not additional. Ilm for us is additional. But imkan is not something secondary. From very essence that we have, you can concept of imkan. Okay. لا يكون وجوده ووجوبه زائدين عليه. his existence and his necessity are not additional to him. وَإِلَّا, otherwise, لَافْتَقَرَ إِلَيْهِمَا, if they were additional, it means that God was then in their need. God needed them. It means that in his essence he lacked them. How can God be needy? How can God depend on something other than itself? Then he is not wajib al-wujud al-zatih. So it contradicts your assumption that he is wajib al-wujud al-zatih. وَإِلَّا لَافْتَقَرَ إِلَيْهِمَا فَيَكُونَ مُمْكِنًا. He was in need of them, then he becomes contingent.
So in other words, Sheikh, we can say that this is his truth.
Pardon?
That he is wajib al-wujud and wajib al-wujud is his truth. In other words, we can say.
Essence.
Yeah, his essence.
His essence, yes. الثالثة, the third characteristic, أنه لا يكون صادقا عليه التركيب. It's not possible to imagine combination for God. Wajib al-wujud cannot be combined, cannot have parts. Okay? It's not possible. Why? Because everything which is compound needs its parts to come together. So those parts then become wajib,
Allah.
not this. Okay? لأن المركب مفتقر إلى أجزائه المغايرة له, because the compound needs its parts which are different from it. Parts are different from the compound. فَيَكُونُ مُمْكِنًا. If you have a car, this car has many parts. The car cannot exist without those parts. Our body has parts. Without those parts, our body cannot exist. So if God has parts, then God cannot be wajib al-wujud, because God cannot exist without those parts. لأن المركب مفتقر إلى أجزائه, because the compound, every compound needs its parts which are other than itself. فيكون ممكنا. So murakkab becomes contingent. And what is contingent cannot be wajib لذاته. This is again خلاف الفرق, against our assumption that it is wajib لذاته. 4. Pardon?
Can you explain the last bit again? From فيكون.
So murakkab becomes mumkin, because murakkab has need for the part. So murakkab, every murakkab is mumkin. It cannot be wajib. Number 4. Wajibul wujud cannot be part of something else. Number 3 was that it doesn't have parts. Number 4, wajibul wujud cannot be part of something else. أنه لا يكون جزءا من غيره, cannot be part of something else. Why? Because if God was part of something bigger than itself, and then it means that God is affected by that combination, and that compound maybe is more important than God. What is there to be added to God? What is there to be a combination of God and something else? Okay? لا يكون جزءا من غيره وإلا لكان منفعلا عن ذلك. Because if it was not the case, otherwise God would be affected by that compound. فيكون ممكنا, then becomes ممكن. Characteristic 5. أنه لا يكون صادقا على اثنين. Wajib al-wujud cannot be true for two things. Cannot be applied to two things. We cannot have two wajib al-wujud. We don't say we don't have two wajib al-wujud. More than that. Not only we don't have two wajib al-wujud, we cannot think of second wajib al-wujud. This concept doesn't accept multiplicity. Later we will talk about arguments for Tawheed, but for the time being, there are many arguments. One argument is this: if you have two wajib al-wujud, what is common? Wujub al-wujud. Okay? What is different? If there is no difference, then why you say there are two? If there is difference, so there must be something in one of them that the other one doesn't have. So it means that it becomes a combination of common point and exclusive point. So it becomes murakkab. Okay? So we cannot have two wajib al-wujud. Okay? أنه لا يكون صادقا على اثنين. Wajib al-wujud cannot be true or applied to two things. Cannot be true about two things or be applied to two things. As it will come in the arguments for unity of God. Okay? Okay. The second point is about the characteristics of mumkin. And I think we leave it for next week because I don't want you to be exhausted. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد